Hey, Alex here, and welcome to another video. Today, originally I wanted to do a job discussion on Steins Gate, and I've already done, this would be the third take actually, but going through the second take, I actually stopped mid-video and literally just looked at the camera and said I'm spoiling way too much themality behind it. So, as that's the case, I've now decided, literally as I sit here, to go back to a series I haven't done in a very long time, which is A Base to the Past. Uninitiated, maybe you haven't been that far back in the video log. Basically, I just talk about video game related stuff that has happened to me in my life, and there's tends to be an anecdote in there somewhere, but anecdote rather. So for a while, I've actually wanted to do system Base to the Past. I already did one on the Dreamcast. And I'll admit, some may say, oh, the Metal Gear one I did was pretty good, which is true, by the way. But the Dreamcast one to me is just it's a very special memory to me. And I feel like a lot of the systems I grew up with have very special memories, and I just haven't sat down to actually do them. So the Dreamcast is done, but I think for the sake of continuity, I am going to go all the way back to the first system I ever actually owned, which was the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System. So let's rewind a bit. This is me rewinding, by the way. And we're gonna go back to first grade for me, which is 1989, 1990-ish. Somewhere around there. So I went to a Catholic school growing up. Essentially, first grade through 12th grade, come to think of it, and then I eventually went to a Jesuit college, and I'm probably the least religious person you'll ever meet. I just like the structure, and I like wearing a tie, I'll be totally honest. I wear one to work every day, I don't wear one at home. But this school itself, back in 1989, 1990, after school programs were really an outsourced thing. Schools didn't really do them at that time, at least my school in particular. We actually didn't get a formal after-school program until maybe 1993, 1992, like end of second grade, beginning of third grade. And I only remember because my homeroom teacher was the person who headed it. So if I didn't do well on a test, or I had a test the next day, and he knew I was struggling, you can rest assured that he pulled me aside, and I had no time to play at this after-school program. But anyway, so the first year, one of my friends in first grade, he was enrolled in this program. And my mom and my dad both worked, so picking me up from school was a task, to say the least. Who's going to pick him up? Who can leave work to pick him up? Who's going to drop him off at home? Can I leave? Can I take half day? It was way too complicated for my folks. So my friend had mentioned he goes to this after-school program, and he had mentioned it to his mom that I was interested in going, so his mom actually called my mom, and she promoted it to her, and my mom called up this after-school program, which is really a daycare that was, I think, 3 blocks away from my grammar school, 3 or 4 blocks, something like that. And they said, well, if your son is friends with, we'll say Jeremy, that's not his real name, but he's more than welcome to come for a day, try it out, and if he likes it, then, we can enroll you in the formal program and, billing and all that stuff. So my mom's like, that's a great idea, let's do this. So I was all excited, because, to me this is something totally new. So this young girl, probably like in her 20s, or, student teacher at the time, who happened to work at this daycare, rolls up with a bunch of kids holding a rope, so she doesn't lose them. And she picks me and my friend up, and then we proceed to walk 4 blocks to this daycare, which is in a townhouse, or brownstone if you guys know the lingo in that case. And what they basically had was, they had an entire floor, which they had converted into a daycare, but because this is probably a rental, they had to leave the pre-existing apartments as is. So basically we had the front entrance area with the steps, and then one apartment had one age category, another apartment had another age category, and another apartment had another age category. This is as ghetto as they get. This is like ghetto good daycare. But I was just excited because this is something totally new. Now, the depressing part is the age category I was in, which was the younger group, was also the most populated group. So being in a one-bedroom brownstone slash townhouse apartment that was pretty much built pre-war, so we're talking like 1920s, and has no ventilation and faces brick walls, and in the back there's probably an area where that looks like something out of Batman or Batman Returns, is horrible. So it was a hot summer day, and it was like 95 degrees with 99.9% humidity in this apartment, and you have about 15, 20 kids running around sweating to death, some of which are wearing ties and stuff because they went to Catholic school. So here's Alex in the middle of all this with a bunch of kids running around like jerks, and I was laid down with the rules. The rules were you couldn't play or do anything until you finished your homework, and after that you got a snack, and then you could play with everybody. But if you got all the answers right on your homework, you got to play with the video games. It was a big deal. They had, I think, like one system per apartment. So I had math homework that night. I made up every answer, so clearly the student teacher wasn't really paying attention because you can't make up answers with math. It's not an essay. So, and I wasn't really good at math at the time anyway, or ever. But I just made stuff up, just wrote it down because I just wanted to see what was to be seen. So finished it, she looked at it, I guess she gave up, or it was the fact that I was the trial kid and they really just wanted the money. So after that I got my snack, which was Kool-Aid and a Ritz cracker with peanut butter on top. Now let that settle in there for a minute. Ritz crackers, peanut butter, Kool-Aid, 95-degree hot day, suit, tie, wool, 99.9% humidity, townhouse, almost tenement style apartment with 15 kids, ages 8 to, more like 4 to 8, we'll say 10. Yeah, 4 to 8 probably. It is disgusting. So I eat my snack, and then I'm allowed to go play the video games, which is literally, the system is a CRT television in a closet, so it's even worse. And it's a Sega Genesis, Model 1. And they had this game on there that I didn't know the name, now I know the name, it's Altered Beast. But at the time, it was totally mesmerizing to me. It was just the transformations, the sound coming from the Genesis of all things. It just, the colors, everything about it just totally captivated me. I played to the first level, I transformed, and that was addicting. It was like, look at this, he's getting stronger. And then I made it to the second level. And then, I became a dragon. And yeah, I still like dragons. So I was just waking out, and then I threw up. A pink jarbled mess of peanut butter, Kool-Aid, and Ritz crackers. They had to call my mom to come pick me up, and she picked me up, and needless to say, my mom never received an invitation to bring me to this thing. I apparently threw up on the system. It wasn't pretty. And yeah, so that was it. No after-school program. But my mom did want to know what I did at this after-school program because when I came home, I was so upset. And, I told her what I ate, and she was like, okay. And even when she saw the facility, she was like, okay, this really isn't the place for my kid. So, but I told her, I got to play video games. Something that was a novel concept at the time for me. So my mom said, all right, maybe for your birthday. Okay, fair enough. So I wanted a Sega Genesis. I didn't know that's what it was called. You know what I mean? I did not know Altered Beast, of all things, was the game I played. So for weeks upon weeks leading up to my birthday, maybe even months, I can't recall exactly. Yeah, because my birthday is in February, so it was months. I was just talking about I want to play video games. Then my friends had them. It was a whole big thing. And as we got closer to my birthday, my mom's like, all right, listen, we got to get him this silly video game thing. Otherwise, this will never end. So I was asked to describe it. I said, oh, there's these guys on screens running side to side, and then, they transform, all this stuff. Made no sense to anybody. So my mom tasked my uncle with trying to figure out what it was because he hung out with me a lot. So pretty much he watched a lot of Saturday morning cartoons and watched the commercials to gauge my reaction. So, we had the Nintendo don't, Sega does what Nintendo don't. But then there was a commercial, and I'll never forget the show. It was actually the Star Wars Ewoks cartoon, for some of you that may remember. I think it was on USA at the time. And there was a commercial for Nintendo with Rob the Robot. And he saw my jaw drop. I was absolutely shocked. Then we saw the Power Glove. and everything just different. And then there was that terrible cartoon show with that starred Nintendo characters. We had the basketball guy, we had the Bigfoot monster truck rally thing. So all of a sudden he goes to my mom. He's like, it totally makes sense. It's a Nintendo. He wants a Nintendo. And my mom's like, well, does the guy transform? And he's like, I have no idea. I've just been watching commercials. So I guess they did some research in the background. But on the day of my birthday, I knew I was getting a video game system. It was already predetermined in the stars, right? So we went out that night for dinner and whatnot, and then we get back to the apartment, and I didn't even let anybody get in the front door. The box was just sitting there, like, all wrapped up, and I just destroyed it, and I ripped it apart. Nobody could enter the apartment. Everybody still had their jackets on because we're in February, and everybody's standing in the front door being like, can you move, kid? So I rip it apart, and I'm looking at this Nintendo Entertainment System, not a Sega Genesis. And in the back of my stupid child mind, I probably thought, this doesn't look like the system I played. But it came with so much stuff, it didn't care. It came with an orange gun. It came with this giant pad with numbers and letters on it. It came with a system that looked like a box. And it came with a game. One game that was Super Mario Brothers, Track and Field, and Duck Hunt all in one. So I was excited, kind of confused, but excited. And then what felt like an eternity, my uncle finally managed to hook the system up into my parents' bedroom. No, was it my parents' bed? Yeah, they put it in my parents' bedroom at the time. And I proceeded to go in there and play with my new system. So Super Mario, not Altered Beast. Very different, but at the same time, still exciting. You know, it was bright, the sound was better. The controller was also very different. I remember looking at it just being like, this isn't comfortable to hold, because, you know, the traditional NES controller is more of a rectangular shape, while the Genesis is more of a rounded. But I quickly became accustomed to this, and, you know, I think my uncle and my mom, who were watching at the time, it kind of clicked in their head that this wasn't what I had played, and I was like, well, the guy doesn't transform. And then I ate a mushroom and I got big, and my mom's like, oh, yes, he does. And I'm like, okay, maybe it's a different game. You know, maybe we'll get it later. Years later, I eventually realized I had the wrong damn system. So, you know, there I am playing Super Mario. My mom is ecstatic. My uncle's excited. And then I proceeded to die 50,000 times on the first stage, and I got annoyed with the game to the point of tears, and then I turned it off. And then I decided I was going to play the Track and Field game with the giant pad. Alex was too fat and got tired, so therefore that game was put away. And I pulled out Duck Hunt with the gun. And I have to say, I was really good at Duck Hunt, because I put that gun right up to the TV screen and just followed the ducks around, killing them all, and getting perfect scores in that and the skeet shooting. My uncle sat in the background going, Alex, that is not how you're supposed to play the game. Please stand more than 2 inches away from the television screen, otherwise you'll need glasses. I need glasses now. I totally blame Nintendo for that. So, after all was said and done, I was now a Nintendo kid. And I think probably one of the key takeaways that, you know, between playing Steins Gate, which does involve time travel, and, you know, getting the wrong system, technically, it makes me wonder what would have happened if I had actually got a Sega Genesis first. Like, would I have grown up a Sega kid? Because I grew up a predominantly Nintendo kid. You know, I went from the NES to the Game Boy to the Super Nintendo. And then eventually I got a Game Gear. And then eventually from there we went on to every other such system. So to me it's kind of fascinating. Just like think about, like, well, what would have been different? I think I would have been more prone to sports games on the Genesis because of the Mutant League games, which I really enjoy, and Road Rash, and some of the racing games, I think. Outrun, which I love. Afterburner, which I love. Maybe even Altered Beast. Maybe I'd be good at it. But I do remember, you know, from there, just thinking about it, like, none of my friends had a Genesis. Everybody was Nintendo. We had a few Game Gears here and there, but everybody was Nintendo. So it makes me wonder, what would have happened if I was the token Sega kid? I think there was somebody who had a TurboGrafx, but we didn't really talk. Maybe he was in 8th grade at the time. Can't really remember, but the past few days I've actually wondered that, like, what would have happened if I grew up a Sega kid? But at the same time, I'm kind of happy I didn't, and I really say that just because the memories that I have tied to Nintendo are, I think, pretty much in tune with my childhood. Not because I got the system in like 1990. I think it was just more so like, my mom taking me to Lionel Kitty City Toys, and the token, get him a Mario, or where's the Nintendo games? Meanwhile, we're standing in like the VHS. Everything's Nintendo. It's like, oh, are you looking for a Philips CDI game? Yeah, Nintendo, whatever it is. It was synonymous with that. And my mom is very much that person. It's a Nintendo. To this day, it's a Nintendo. It doesn't really matter what it is. I can say, Mom, it's a Sony PlayStation. Yeah, Nintendo with CDs. Like, it doesn't matter. But there was just so many memories that were just tied to that system too. So looking back, what if is a big question. But in terms of, like, I guess you could say cause and effect, I wouldn't have experienced Zelda. I would have experienced Contra because of the arcades, but I wouldn't have experienced the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game, the Ultra ones, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game. All these games that I hold in such high nostalgic regard, rose-tinted glasses or not. And what's really strange is, even as a kid, as being one of those guys who traded in games to go move on to the next thing, I did get rid of some of my Nintendo games as a kid, but I kept a lot. Which, thinking about it now, and I do have a collection video up that's somewhat old at this point. I think it's like 3 years old. It really hasn't changed much since then. Really, the only games that have been added are a copy, I can tell you off the top of my head: Punch-Out!, Journey to Silius, Crystallis, Bionic Commando. There's one more. Vice Project Doom. That's it. Those are all the games I added between that and then the system that my girlfriend got me for Christmas. Those are the only games that have been added to that collection since. And it's not because I don't want to collect Nintendo games. I just have the games I want. You know what I mean? It's like, that system is done. Journey to Silius, I really don't have any nostalgic memories to. I just saw a lot of people play it on YouTube and I thought it was cool. Crystallis, I don't have any nostalgic memories to, but damn straight am I happy I played it. But, I don't know. I just think it's just really funny. Like, now, as a bunch of you guys have seen in, the pickup videos are relative to this video, I've been picking up a lot of Genesis games, and I had a lot of Genesis games growing up. Those I parted ways with, and that's because they didn't hold that same nostalgic weight that the Nintendo had. As a kid, I remember the one Genesis commercial, Genesis does with Nintendo. But with Nintendo, I remember so many more. And I remember so much more product placement. And I remember so many more people going as the Mario Brothers for Halloween than anything else. But, I think it's also just really cool just to be able to say, hey, fate decided I was supposed to be a Nintendo kid, despite me puking on a Sega Genesis, I guess. There's really no theme behind that. It's just, in hindsight, in retrospect, I'm just kind of happy the way everything turned out. And if anybody were to say, hey, Alex, you can go back in time and get that Genesis, I'd have to say no, in all honesty. I'm happy when I got it, which was 6 or 7 years later, I want to say. No. Sonic 3 came out, so 94. So about 4 or 5 years later, I got Genesis. And I was happy I got it then, because there's a cool memory tied to that, but that's for another day. I've been Alex, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care. games that have been added to that collection since. And it's not because I don't want to collect Nintendo games. I just have the games I want. You know what I mean? It's like that system is done. Journey to Silius, I really don't have any nostalgic memories to. I just saw a lot of people play it on YouTube and I thought it was cool. Crystallis, I don't have any nostalgic memories to, but damn straight am I happy I played it. But, you know, I don't know. I just think it's just really funny. Like now, as a bunch of you guys have seen in, you know, the pickup videos that are relative to this video, I've been picking up a lot of Genesis games. And I had a lot of Genesis games growing up. Those I parted ways with. And that's because they didn't hold that same nostalgic weight that the Nintendo had. You know, as a kid, you know, I remember the one Genesis commercial, you know, Genesis does with Nintendo. But with Nintendo, I remember so many more. And I remember so much more product placement. And I remember so many more people going as the Mario Brothers for Halloween than anything else. But, you know, I think it's also just really cool just to be able to say, hey, fate decided I was supposed to be a Nintendo kid, despite me puking on a Sega Genesis, I guess. There's really no theme behind that. It's just, in hindsight, in retrospect, I'm just kind of happy the way everything turned out. And if anybody were to say, hey Alex, you can go back in time and get that Genesis, I'd have to say no, in all honesty. I'm happy when I got it, which was 6 or 7 years later, I want to say. No. Sonic 3 came out, so 94, so about 4 or 5 years later I got Genesis, and I was happy I got it then, because there's a cool memory tied to that, but that's for another day. I've been Alex, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care.